Live now, not yet.
Okay, let's call to order this meeting of the Woodford County Board of Education on July 26, 2021, and it is a special board meeting because our physical location has been changed. Let the roll call show that 3 members are present, and 2 are absent. Miss Richardson is on her way and will join us as she is able. Will you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, are there any proposed amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Atkins?
Okay, real quick, just update. I'm not sure if y'all realize this, but this is my first official board meeting, and I'm being facetious with that. I know you do. So what I've tried to do is just go back over the last month and touch on things that have been a positive impact in our district. So the first thing that I want to talk about is thanking everybody for such a warm welcome. I've been very fortunate, very blessed to be able to receive such a warm welcome. I've had a chance to meet all the principals now. I think we've had great conversations. We're looking forward to getting started tomorrow with our retreat. Let's see. We have all the information that was requested. I want to make sure at the last meeting, the planning meeting, with the exception of forming a budget committee. And I cannot find a system or a district that has a budget committee. I'm not saying it's not out there. I just haven't found it yet. So I'm going to ask you to give me a little more time on trying to uncover how that will look when we can find one, okay? I do want to touch on some things that have kind of caught up with us, and that would be with our roof repair here at the high school. Now, we may have found a cheaper solution with some flashing, and I'll let Mr. Martello explain that as we get there. But the initial cost we had talked about was the possibility of replacing just that section of roof, which would have been approximately $200,000. And working with not the same company, but some of the companies that work with us, they're proposing a fix that could be somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000 to $40,000. Wow. So that would be a big savings for us. Yes. I did have a chance to meet with the architect and bonding agent of the new school. So as I look at that, again, as I sent in our Friday email, that as far as discussing anything about a project, until you know you have the funding, you really can't. I mean, it's kind of dead in the water. So you have to look at the funding first. And that's what we're exploring right now with the bonding agent. So with that being said, I'll update you as soon as I know more about that. I did say to tell you that we had a meeting with KDE coming up, and we'll listen and see what kind of ideas they have, and as far as what the bonding agent has as well. Get that set up. The school supplies. I was not concerned, but I was a little uneasy about how the community would perceive that. But it's been a hit. Parents have loved it. Even we have parents that are comfortable, obviously very comfortable, and can buy their own school supplies, but they see it as an opportunity to help other kids. So we buy our own school supplies for our kids, and then that makes it more available. Now, with that being said, our middle schools and our high schools will be able to be aided more by our Friskies because we've taken some of the burden off them. So we're kind of opening the door for all 3 levels at this point with a little more help as far as school supplies. And we've had a lot of great volunteers. We've had Ian Cooper, and we've had Jenna. I can't think of Jenna's last name right now, but they've been over, and we've just a lot of folks have come over and offered to help. And if you come to the central office right now, we have crayons stacked to the ceiling in there. We have pencils. We have all kinds of things, and our Friskies are ready to start getting those out there. So we're excited about that. Just a brief update. We have our retreat tomorrow. All administrators will be in Louisville. Then we have CASA, which gives us an opportunity again to learn professionally from groups across the Commonwealth. We get that opportunity. CASA does something 2 or 3 times a year, so we do get that opportunity as members of CASA. I will say KDC had done a survey. I think I shared that with everyone. If I didn't, I will. They surveyed all the districts that belong to KDC about masks or no masks, and I'll share that information with you guys before we ever actually get into a deep conversation about that. I will say that the governor made an announcement this afternoon. It's just kind of what we expected. They recommend, which we know we're going to have a mandate on buses. That's federally mandated. So let's just go ahead and we'll rip that Band-Aid off. We know that's going to have to happen. But I kind of look at recommendations as if KDE wants to make a recommendation, then we can make the same recommendations. That's not a mandate, but that's for another day, another conversation. With that being said, I think that's all I have. I know there's things I've forgotten, but I'll do better next time, I promise.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adkins. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report and June financial report?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And can I speak what you think?
Of course. Do we need to do that prior to the vote, or?
No, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay. The motion passes 3-0.
I just wanted to publicly recognize Mr. Burnett, Mr. Glenn Burnett tonight. He has given 27 years of his life to the community and the district, and so he's officially retiring at the end of this month as the maintenance supervisor position. And so we've been very blessed to have Mr. Burnett for these last 27 years. I think it was March of 1994 was when he first started here. And so before that, he was at 18 years with a local horse farm. So he's only had 2 employers in his entire career.
Amazing.
You know, that's dedication and I'm trying to word I'm thinking of allegiance to 2 organizations. So we're blessed, and I ran the numbers, just kind of estimating all that he's impacted in terms of lives of kids, and I was estimating at least 20,000 kids he has impacted in this community, and as well as 10,000 plus work orders, and that could be anywhere from a light bulb to renovations, additions, building a new school. He was around for the construction of the middle school. So thank you, Glenn, for all of your hard work and dedication to the district. So just wanted to point that out. And I told you I'd forget something. Glenn and I had lunch last week. He gave me an update on the history of all the facilities, and he gave away some of his good deer hunting spots. So we'll keep that quiet, though, right, Glenn? But we had a great lunch, a great conversation, and we can't do enough for our employees that has served the district and served the students of Woodford County as long as Mr. Burnett has. So again, hats off to Glenn, and you will be sorely missed. Because these kind of guys, they know where every breaker's at. They know where every water turn on and off set. It's just hard to replace that institutional knowledge. So again, thank you, Glenn.
Mr. Burnett, would you like to say anything? Do you want to say anything? Okay. Well, on behalf of the board, thank you so much for your years of dedication and service. And I think to echo and kind of piggyback off of what Mr. Martello said, having only 2 different careers speaks to your character in staying in those roles so long. So thank you so much for everything that you've done for all the students of Woodford County.
And you will be sorely missed, and it will take at least 2, possibly 3 folks to fill your shoes. So thank you so much.
And they'll still call in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You just keep your phone on, because I can assure you that's going to happen.
Ms. McHale?
Just congratulations from our district and from me, and best wishes for a long, happy, healthy retirement.
For sure. Thank you so much. Ms. Cooper, is there any public comment?
Are you up onto the instructional update?
We'll go, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we need to probably need to catch up with that because we missed it last time.
Yes.
Mr.
Mr.
was
Asher.
unfortunate.
Thought I was gonna go.
Thought you dodged a bullet.
I was just gonna sit back there quiet.
So, Mr. Asher, where were you stranded last week?
Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah, it was a travel ordeal, but we made it safely. So that's all that matters.
Good.
Expensively, but safely. Anyways,
Proud owner of a new automobile?
well, a repaired one. Let's say that.
Practically new.
Yeah. Okay, let me first talk about summer school. When I last spoke to you all in June, we were in the midst of our first session, and we took a break there, right in between June, July, that last week of June going into July, and then resumed for the second session, July 6th, and then just ended last week, July 22nd. Elementary and middle school, both sessions were all held at the middle school, and you've probably seen posts on it, social media posts. That collaboration was wonderful, given the fact that you had all 4 elementary schools joining together, teachers from different schools in same classrooms, students from different schools in same classrooms, and I really feel like they bonded over the summer, and they are quite a crew. And that goes to the middle school as well. They were all in the same building, obviously. They divided by hallways, but really pitched in, and they finished their year. I know Mr. Atkins got a chance to go with a field day last Thursday to culminate their successful summer. So that wasn't planned. I mean, it was planned, obviously, to have it all in one place, but just the cohesiveness and collaboration just was a good product of that. As what they used there was Lit Camp was one of the main resources used. That's something we've used in the past. It's specific curriculum that is meant for summer, kind of condensed, but is also meant to facilitate it's not just skill and drill over the summer, but it is based on just developing a love of reading and a love of literacy with some fun activities built in. So we actually had that going at all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school for that second session. On average for the second session, this would be all levels, we had about 170 students. Attendance was a little bit more sparse than our first session. I think as you get into summer and they want to take a break here and there, but it was successful in having, like I said, on average 170 students in that second session. So successful. We'll see what next summer brings, but we certainly have learned a lot doing this, obviously pre-pandemic, through a pandemic, virtually, in person, collaborative. So we've got a lot of knowledge to build from when we plan again for next summer. I'll stop there. Any questions about our summer programming?
Do you guys track how the credit recovery to measure how many?
We do. We both that number of credits earned. I don't have that number in front of me, but I can get it to you.
Okay.
We also track all of those students, and then when we get back with our fall data, we make sure we track who had participated in summer, how they come back, because ultimately what we're looking for is reducing that summer slide.
Mm-hmm.
So we track that as well. So I can get the credit recovery numbers to you as well as that later into the school year once we have that.
Thank you. And obviously a huge thank you to all of our staff that worked. They looked like they were all having fun in the pictures. They weren't the kind of forced smiles. They all looked like they were having a good time.
I know we had a blast on field day the last days. We got tattoos, we had popsicles. I mean, we all kinds of fun things. So yeah, it was fun.
And there's strategic planning that goes into that. I'll give credit to Dr. Jones, who's been involved with the summer program for years now. And what I mean by strategic is you got to do it right. You can't have them there all day long. I mean, that wears on the adults and the kids. So it's 3.5 hours, 4 hours session all together in the morning. You feed them, and you just got to be strategic in that so that they continue with that love of learning and literacy, as I said, but yet still want to come on a consistent basis.
For sure.
I'm sorry, anything else on that? Next item, just simply, and I've touched on this, but we always talk about our big rocks going into each and every school year. I feel like I've touched on these, but we picked 3 things. And the first and foremost is our MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. That is our structure that we use for both the academic side as well as the behavioral or social emotional side. And it's really reestablishing all of those structures coming off a crazy year, because we know that kids and adults for that matter are going to need supports and processes to make gains. And so that is first and foremost our first big rock. We had a training, Amy Oates, who is our MTSS coordinator, we had a training with our school teams, which included our principals, obviously, as well as their school level MTSS teams back in early June. And then they are all having their school level work sessions, I guess, based on that training here through early July and leading right up to school to get those reestablished. Our second big rock is PLC, Professional Learning Communities. Really just reestablishing those once again. They happened through last year, but it was it was obviously more difficult, in and out, virtual or not. So reestablishing the practices of PLC and basically having your like teachers, your common teachers working together for the benefit of the students. What do we want them to learn? How are we going to assess it? What are we going to do if they struggled? What are we going to do if they excel? And they focus on those 4 questions repeatedly, week in and week out, to plan their instruction. So reestablishing that. And then finally, and I know I've mentioned this one, we had surveyed and a couple different levels, but our third one is mental health and wellness, and this is both a student and staff focus. I know just last week you approved the EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, and that's one example of how we want to support staff when you consider mental health and wellness. For our students, MTSS always calls for tiering things. So tier 1, what are we going to do for all students? What is the social emotional learning curriculum going to consist of? We had some existing things, but obviously we've learned more what to add to it. What are we doing at tier 1? And then for kids who need additional support, what are we doing at tiers 2 and 3? So 3 things: MTSS, PLC, and the mental health and wellness support for both students and staff. That's it in general, but certainly we work on specifics both at the district level and at school level. Sorry.
MTSS will obviously play an integral role in getting back to school and addressing any learning loss. Hopefully we didn't have much because you guys were in school 120 days, but addressing that learning loss when we get back as far as through our tiers and just backing up with the extra help.
Right. Certainly.
It's exciting.
Thank you. Any questions on our big rocks or our focus areas? Next thing I'd like to move into is virtual, and formerly known as Virtual Academy. As you probably know, last year we had to have a virtual option. We surveyed at the end of this year, and it was even before May because I think they had to have their application in May. The specific dates escape me. But at that time, most of our interest was at high school, so let me talk about that first. So we will have a virtual option at the high school, formerly known as Virtual Academy, and now will be renamed as WAVE. We had that existing name, WAVE, Woodford Academy of Virtual Education. What we've done is basically put that under Woodford County High School. Previously, it was an arm, so to speak, or a extension of Safe Harbor Academy. Now it will be with Woodford County High School. Students from either location can apply, and let me start with that. It is application based, and we've been working through this process from May all the way through the summer of looking at those applications. And the main criteria for acceptance into this is that you've demonstrated success, or that you've demonstrated a commitment to virtual education. And we have a whole year and more worth of progress to look at for these students. So we've been through, we are getting some new applications because of current circumstances, and so we're looking at those on an individual basis as they come in. It will be supported similar to how we supported WAVE in the past, meaning that we have a coordinator and multiple teachers, either 5 or 6. There are some from both Safe Harbor and some from the high school that will support the students. And let me say up front, it is primarily independent, that they are working through. Edgenuity is the main resource. There may be some others that pull in. The teachers are there to help them progress through that. It will not be, we talked about synchronous and those sort of things, we talked about that, before that term before, it will mainly be independent. But again, these are students who demonstrated success through that model before and are still interested in doing that. The teacher support, they will offer on-site, in-person help 2 nights a week. Still working through that schedule. There will be an in-person orientation August 12th, the first day of school, for these students. Right now, we're in the high 20s, close to 30. We're kind of we're sorting through that. Some that had applied and saying, no, I want to come in person now, and vice versa. So we're sorting through that with the WAVE staff. Let me close there and see if you have any questions.
So, I guess one question would be the one that I have shared with you, and that was from a parent that said, if there is a masking mandate, I don't want my kids to come back to school. So where are we going to meet those families, given that once again we find ourselves with kind of a changing narrative from the state, and I don't know that we've heard the last recommendation.
Right. So that question, if I may, really will probably span K through 12. So one option would, at the high school level, would be then to apply to WAVE. Let me back up. At that time, let's talk K through 8. Again, we didn't have the interest. So I emailed those parents back and said, and literally we had 7 applications that would meet the criteria at the middle school and 3 at elementary. That's strictly not the numbers to support it. We can't hire teachers and support a program with those low of numbers. So at that time, the email to them explained that. And it went on to say, if you have health concerns or continuing health concerns going into next year, that myself and Mr. Wells would work on them with what the options would be. The first option we would go to is home hospital, where essentially, and I'm simplifying this, the work is provided from the in-person teacher or teachers, and there's a facilitator, a home hospital instructor that facilitates that, as well as visits with that student to support them through the curriculum. So to answer your question, that would be the first option we look at. As you know, we run into a lot of what ifs or individual circumstances, and we could work through those. But that would be the first option we would look at, would be the home hospital. And there's already, the good thing about that is there's already an existing process, application to work through that we would steer them through that process. That answer your question?
Sure. And I think probably this is going to be one of those times that if parents do have questions, it's going to be best to contact you and let you talk with them about their specific circumstances and the age level and things like that.
It has obviously picked up over the last 2 weeks. Garrett and I are both taking email and phone calls and staying in touch with each other on our response and pointing them in the direction, the parents in the direction of what their options might be.
Is that, so for us, is that the appropriate contact then, or should we refer them to their school principals?
No, send it to our level right now. Mr. Adkins mentioned retreat, and we've kind of had to revamp what our retreat agenda is, because now it's how are we going to respond to this new guidance come out? How are we going to deal with virtual situations or home hospital? But at this point in time, we will not have a virtual academy for K through 8. We have the WAVE, formerly known as Virtual Academy for our high school, but at this time we do not have that for elementary and middle school levels. We're going to go the home hospital, or there may be some, and I don't even know what those other options would be, but if there are unique circumstances, we'll work through those and figure out how to service that student.
And from what I can gather, last year we used home hospital for students that may have been quarantined. Am I correct on that?
In some cases, it was more so used that a home hospital teacher really supported virtual at the high school. Yeah. It was for kids who were not being successful, back to what I talked about before, independently. So there was more of a home hospital, a visit, a more frequent contact from that teacher to really keep them on track.
Gotcha.
And my only other question is, so over and over we heard on Edgenuity that the pacing was just a problem. Is that something you feel like as we worked through the year, I figured those things out?
Absolutely. You heard that the loudest at middle school when we first attempted it. And I mean, I saw it with my middle schoolers, and they adjusted on the fly right there. I don't think we heard it as much as at high school, but there's also a difference in, well, one, we've learned from experiences, right? And two, they're pacing out the whole year. They will have, if you remember last year, we did 4-block schedules, so they had 4 classes first semester. They will have a year-long schedule. So that'll adjust the pacing a little bit. Ultimately, you're still going to have the same finish line, but that will adjust the pacing as well. Mr. Scott Ellis, will be the WAVE coordinator and has worked with it for several years. How long? 3 years? 3 years prior. So he's very well versed in that pacing and Edgenuity courses and supporting kids through that. So he'll be able to support them through that.
All right. Ms. McHale?
The only question I have is around the election. So are you electing or you're being admitted for the entire school year? And are there points?
The application.
Yeah.
It is semester.
Okay.
And that was set up front in the application. This is what you're committing to. You're committing to a semester, which, January time frame. And part of the application, once there was a contract as well. Like, I understand this is how long I'm in for this, and I understand there will be some times required in person. I mentioned the orientation and testing. Specifically in the spring, they'll have to come in person for testing. So all that to say, it's a semester commitment. What we will do is then open it up again for application should somebody want to join second semester.
Okay.
And that'll be like a November time frame, we're thinking. Decision in December, and then start second semester. And so that'll be the point at which some come in and out at that semester break.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Springate?
It sounds like, I'm really pleased that we're able to offer a virtual option for the high schoolers. My only concern is that I feel like the sooner we can make a plan at Woodford County about what we're going to be doing and communicate that out so that our students and parents and staff know what to expect, obviously the better. I think that's probably everybody's goal, to really firm that up and get that out, really yesterday. Right. So it sounds like you guys are very aware.
I'm sorry, by plan you mean like mask and
yeah,
I
think people really need to know the information of what it's going to look like going back to Woodford County, so that they can make some of the decisions like Ms. Bradley was speaking about. And then also staffing wise and room wise and number wise with students and all of those things that I know you guys had to adjust and readjust and then readjust again last year. So I'm hopeful that we can kind of move forward with that and
believe me,
communicate that out.
We want to do that, but we want to make sure we have all the information. Governor just had his press conference today, so we want to make sure we have all as updated information as possible and not get yet another curveball in a week or two and have to do something different. So yes, we want to communicate that, believe me, but we want to make sure that we're all on the same page and understand what we are required or recommended to do.
I think things got clouded a lot last year simply because we would make, and I'm not saying here, but anywhere across the state, we'd make a statement, something would change. We'd make a statement, something would change. So basically, we knew as of Friday, I think I may have sent notification to you guys that the commissioner and Dr. Young had sat down with the governor. So we knew they were going to make some sort of an announcement today. So we really, as Mr. Asher said, we discussed it a long time in cabinet today because that was supposed to be tomorrow afternoon's entire discussion. Now, we'll see what it may be 2 days worth of discussion now, so we'll see. But yeah, we are in the process. We are, and I feel like I feel like we got a lot of the work done. Really, a lot of masking, those types of things are just the issues left up now.
So do you anticipate then, and I think this is probably a question for you, a need for a special meeting to address these things?
We very well may need to do that. Yes,
okay,
because that's what I was thinking. I had maybe even told Mr. Martello back in the last week that there may be a need for a special call meeting next week to make those announcements or those decisions.
I agree completely with what Ms. Springate said. I think our families need to hear the direction, and it may well be a case that we say, here's what we're hoping for, but it all hinges on state level guidance and mandates.
And even really our local. our local
Sure.
conditions as the way things are trending right now. I think we have a little bit of an increase with our numbers. However, I do feel like, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we've gone from 22.9 on the map down to 19 something. Martha, is that correct? We looked at that this morning. So we have dropped, but again, a new day brings new numbers. So we'll just have to monitor that again next week, and we'll see kind of what the trend is. But locally, ideally, we'd make the decision at the local level with the information we have here in Woodford County. It's so hard to base a decision, a statewide decision, because you do have, Western Kentucky had they almost didn't know they had a pandemic. They went to school. So just kind of things that we need to take into consideration. I feel like our local conditions are going to play a bigger role than maybe we think they will.
Okay.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Just 2 weeks ago, well, I'll probably go 3 weeks. We were planning just going back as normal. Didn't know that we'd have a guidance document, came out July 14th. Didn't know we would have to listen in the governor again and those sort of things. So we are adjusting on the fly once again. Thought we were out of it, but we're not. I've stopped using post-pandemic, and now it's late pandemic. No, seriously.
Yeah,
I can't say post
yeah.
anymore. In talking in teacher trainings and that sort of thing. So we know there's decisions to be made, and we're going to make those as quick as we can, but with the most current, up-to-date information that we can as well. I was talking virtual. Any other questions on that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Nope. Thank you.
And then finally, just equity update. We had our meeting just before. We did not meet in the month of June, but what today's purpose was really just kind of recalibrate in terms of our action plan and going back through that. Two things I want to highlight. Our collaboration project with WEEF, I've mentioned several times, known as the Diversity Project. Those are small grants funded for anything in the realm of diversity. And those could be funded to classroom teachers, they could be funded to school groups, they could be funded to individual students. We're looking for creativity coming out of that. So that'll roll out in early August. Again, I want to tout WEEF as being an excellent collaborative partner and always supportive of our school district. So we're excited to roll that out. Then the other thing I want to highlight, we have 2 remaining steps with Dr. Banks and whatever it takes. We have our last module of professional development that we'll be training the leads on. When I say leads, that's our principal and a designated teacher at each school. We're going to do that late August. My initial thought was we try to get in before school starts, but we're really crammed with other things, to be quite honest. So we're going to wait until just after the school year starts so that they can then deliver that to their staffs in September is the hope there. So that's the last PD module. And then the CQ assessment, the Cultural Intelligence Assessment. I know you took that, Ms. Springate, you took that. We will have round 2 of that because basically it's a pre and post. We are looking at the December-January timeframe to do that. I don't know how you and Ms. Glass, I'm going to catch you up. You may just have to do that one opportunity just so you know what it's all about.
It's neat.
It's everything from if you speak multiple languages to how many countries have you traveled through. It's, you learn a little something about yourself. But again, we're taking it a second round to see what our growth was, both individually and collectively, over the course of this of our work with whatever it takes. So that was my update on equity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
The only other question I had, and it's going back one thing, how have we communicated the EAP program to all of our staff?
We were a little delayed because of contractual things.
Sure.
Finally got grants blessings, I think was mentioned last week.
Yeah.
So an official start date with them, Inova is the group, is September 1. August will be our communication
Rollout.
month. Yes,
Okay.
our rollout. They have materials and brochures and things to do that. Ms. Oates is going to kind of take the lead with
Great.
that. Garrett will support through the HR realm, but we're going to get all the information out in August, basically to tell them September 1, we're ready to roll with this should you need assistance.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you to you and Mr. Wells for all of your work on that. I think that's really important and a great thing for our staff.
All right, appreciate it. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Cooper, any public comments come in while we were doing that? All right. Is there a motion, or would any member like anything removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the
Real quick, let me update you on approved grants, which was just added, and here's why. Because the mayor, Mayor
Troggett?
Troggett, I have a tough time with his last name, he had made us aware of some grants that would be available to some of our athletic groups, even some of our schools. So we sent that out to our principals, and we have one grant come back. So that would be an opportunity for us to receive this grant if so chosen. And that was through Mr. Culberson over at Safe Harbor. So he applied for one of the grants, and this would allow him to not necessarily just apply, but would allow him to receive the grant if he were to get it. So,
Great.
other than that, everything's the same.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 3-0. We will move on to our regular agenda. Is there a motion to accept the notification of personnel matters?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I will second.
There's a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Is there a motion to accept the notification of payment of bills?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Wow.
I know.
There's a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 3-0. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the June 3rd, June 8th, June 14th, June 21st board meetings?
So moved.
There's a motion. Whoa.
How about that?
There's a motion by Ms. McHale and a second by Ms. Springate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 3-0. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the June 21st, 2021 board meeting?
So moved.
Oh man, I thought I was going to have to
Second.
take it. All right. There's a motion by Ms. McHale and a second by Ms. Springate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 3-0. Is there a motion to approve the authorization to solicit bids for the 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 3-0. Is there a motion to approve the amendment of a position title?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 3-0. Is there a motion to reclassify the assistant superintendent position as active and amend the salary schedule for the 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 3-0.
Real quick, can I say something about H?
Yes.
H mentions, it says section, roof section replacement. So even though now it is looking at it possible, we're still kind of, even though we're looking at a repair, it still had to be listed as a BG1.
Okay. Mr. Martello, is there something you want to share?
I think we're good unless, we know we have to repair it, either replace it or repair it, either one, whatever.
I guess, well, we could do a motion.
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve a BG1 for the Woodford County High School roof section replacement?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. McHale. And now we'll move into discussion on this item. Mr. Martello?
On this item, just so everybody's on the same.
Not sure your mic's picking up yet.
On this item, just so we're on the same page, we just approved the BG1, but there's 4 other elements I want to make sure that I mention in terms of approval for tonight. The proposal from Trimco is roughly $35,000. The proposal by Trimco alone is about $30,000, and then the architect fee with that is another $5,000. The CAD drawings, that we had the architect put together, and that would be Ross Turrent, is a part of this proposal, as well as the declaration notice. We have to, since it's an emergency situation, the department has to adopt a specific declaration notice for those steps, so BG1 and those types of things based on the emergency nature. And the fifth item is the AIA contract document between the architect and the owner, being the school district. And just as a recap, the reason that the cost went from $200,000 to roughly $35,000 is we wanted to assess before we put that large of a dollar amount into a roof that may not be of our possession here in X number of years. And let me caution everyone, we are not jeopardizing a warm, safe, and dry environment for our students, but the $35,000 that were, or $30,000 with Trimco and the architect cost is to mitigate the immediate water concern of water coming into the building. And so what we're proposing tonight is an element of what would have been the $200,000 to replace that section of roof, but we feel like when the architect and the roofing representative, Trimco, got together and really assessed the roof situation, they realized that the damaged roof in one portion is not the start of where the water was coming in. And so after reassessing that, we feel like it's being fiduciary responsible to replace the through flashing that's where the two roofs meet, address that issue, address the immediate water that's coming in. And the second reason that we couldn't even go forward on replacing that section of roof is across the country, you have a shortage of the insulation material to do the roofing job. So even if we wanted to go forward to replace that section of roof today, we can't get the insulation to facilitate that process. So stepping back, reassessing, after we do this work to address that new water, and then down the road, if we so choose to go to replace that section of roof, that's another conversation. But just being fiduciary responsibility, not jeopardizing the safety of our students, I feel like this was a good immediate solution in terms of an emergency situation.
Okay, and I see that Michael Hughes has called in from Russ Torrent. Michael, is there anything that you would add?
I think Mr. Martello did an excellent job of explaining it and summarizing it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
How long would you anticipate that this patch will last?
Well, I wouldn't explain this as a patch, really, because it's not in the membrane itself.
Okay.
And it's really addressing the water coming in at the wall, where the roof is meeting the wall. And so this work would need to be done in any roof replacement into the future, and doing it now doesn't preclude you from doing the roof replacement into the future. It doesn't have to be redone. And so there's really no disadvantage of going ahead with this portion of the work.
Okay.
In terms of lasting, the quality of the through-wall flashing proposed is very high quality and would be part of a roof that would eventually get a 20-year roof warranty typically. So this portion of the work would at least last 20 years.
Okay, Ms. McHale?
So is there still a section of the roof itself, though, that has damage that we need to address at some point?
So we believe that this will address the source of the water coming in and should stop it. And so the rest of the roof, I should note that the rest of the roof is fairly old. It is due for a replacement. But the membrane is in fairly decent condition and has been patched here and there. But at some point in the future, owning this building into the future, it will need a roof replacement.
Okay. Ms. Springate?
Yes, I guess my comment would be just that if we do need a roof replacement on the building, and we know we do, how old is the roof that's on currently?
since '96. So I'm going to say
Since the addition, since the addition. I would imagine.
27.
About 24 years.
Okay.
And so, I mean, clearly that is a facility need for this building. The roof does need to be replaced. So I guess my only concern would be spending $35,000 to do this portion of what is a larger roof repair. I just don't want to get in a position where we do a patch for $35,000 and then we have to come back and do the roof repair for $200,000 still, because it's not like they're just going to say, oh, we've done a little bit of work here, we'll just take that off the final bill. So I guess that's really my biggest concern, that if we know we need a new roof, I'm not sure why we wouldn't just go ahead and try to do that. It sounds like Mr. Martello was explaining this is an emergency type situation. So the whole roof is not an emergency, but this particular section is an emergency?
In terms of the immediate water that's getting into that one area, yes.
And did I understand you, Mr. Hughes, to say that this, if we move forward with this, this would be part of any further roof repair that is necessary? So it would count toward that?
Yes.
Okay.
We would not be paying twice. We're addressing the immediate concern.
This portion was going to have to be done either way.
Correct, but
Yeah,
usually when somebody comes in to do a repair, like if they repair your roof at home, you might have a patch put on, or you might have some flashing put in, but then when you have to you replace the entire roof, they replace the entire roof. They don't say, oh, here's a little section that I can see you've replaced this section, or you've done something here. So I guess my concern is, like, I'm not sure, like, does it make sense if we have to redo the whole thing? Does it make sense to do a small repair and then all that, will, I guess, I would assume when you get a full roof repair would be part of a full roof repair job or bid?
That would have actually been a part of the full roof. Not even, I won't say a full roof repair, because really we were just going to patch it in. I mean, the $200,000 was just a patch.
The cost to replace the roof was over $1 million.
Yeah, it'd be
Well,
probably, for this size of a facility, probably $1.5 million, $1.75 million.
Right.
So I guess that's just the bigger question. If we're gonna have to replace the whole thing and spend that, would it make sense just to do that, or does it make sense we have to do this because this is an emergency? I just don't want to pay for a repair and then buy a new car, kind of, essentially. So what I'm getting at is, if we're going to have to be replacing, it's well past the 20-year mark when you usually have to replace a roof.
But we definitely don't want to get into spending $1 million.
I know, but it's kind of like what you have to do sometimes. So I guess I'm trying to get a sense.
If you look at the $200,000 project, again, the $35,000 was a piece of that. That was going to have to be done along with, so it would have, now the project would cost you approximately $165,000, simply because you've already taken care of the flashing issue.
Yeah,
It's
just
just
usually.
postponing it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think anybody's saying don't do the second piece.
Yeah.
It's just maybe postponing a little bit.
Would that be how it worked, Mr. Hughes? If we did the $35,000 now, would they just take that off, like the $200,000 bill later, or the $1 million bill if we did a whole roof replacement, or?
Yes, and that would be reflected in the architect's document. So we would document where the through-wall flashing has been installed and where it hasn't, and that would be part of the bid.
So you think that would be like a $35,000 discount?
It's not a discount,
It
it's
just
just
wouldn't
work
be the work
already
that had to be
done.
done again.
It just doesn't have to be redone.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I will just underscore the other fact that Mr. Martello mentioned is that roof insulation, we're in an unprecedented situation nationally, and it's unavailable. And all alternatives are unavailable. And so at this time, it is pretty darn near impossible to put a new roof on any project. And we've actually seen this. We've been bidding. We put out a few roof projects to bid, and everyone's saying the earliest is December or January before we'll see. And there's a number of factors that have contributed to it, but the raw materials that make the insulation are not available at this time.
So it sounds like not only is this the best option, it's the only option.
And it will stop water from coming
Right.
in at the source and doing any more damage, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, that's
That's
why
correct.
Yes.
All right, is there any further discussion?
And if I may ask, just to make sure we're okay with the Department of Ed, I know you've approved the first item, which was the BG1, but if you would.
We
if you-
haven't voted yet.
I'm sorry, okay.
No, it's
But
okay.
all 5 elements, just so I have that documented for the attachments.
And the
Okay.
35,000 is for all 5 elements, or no?
The 35,000 is for the 30,000, roughly 30,000 in Trimco, $5,000 for the architect. And I will make this caveat, just to make sure we're on the record. There is a $1,500 contingency fee if the construction piece went in excess of nearly at $30,000, just for disclosure. So yes.
All right. So then we have a motion and a second to approve the BG1 as defined in the documents attached to the agenda, with a total construction cost of $29,965, a contingency of $1,500, an architect and engineering fee of $5,000, for a total project cost of $36,465.
And I know Mr. Chenoweth is not here, but Mr. Martello, do you need us to revise our motion to include the other 5 things, specifically name them, the BG1, and then the other documents, the roof plan, the letter of emergency declaration, the owner-architect agreement, and the section letter? Do you need all 5 of those approved, or just the BG1?
If I could get all 5,
Okay,
just
I can
in
revise. Yeah,
case.
I don't mind revising my motion.
And we do have Mr. Conley, I think, on, but I would feel safer
Okay,
if we
well,
did.
let me withdraw my motion, my original motion. Will you withdraw your second?
I will do that.
Okay, and let me make a new motion that we approve the BG1, the BG High School Roof Section Letter from Trimco, the roof plan, the letter of emergency declaration, and the owner-architect agreement, all of which are associated with the BG1 roof replacement that Ms. Bradley described for that total.
All right, there's a motion by Ms. Springate to approve the BG1 and those accompanying documents. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Martello.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Hughes.
Appreciate it.
All right, item I, is there a motion to approve the KEDC membership?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate, and the chair seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 And I will say that we have already started taking advantage of some of their financial support.
Great.
So, yeah.
Good. And we did say last week that you would try and capture some of the benefits of that so that we could look at that after the first year. So that's a good use of taxpayer money. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
We voted.
I didn't know if Ms. Cooper could hear everything. Okay. All right. Then the next item is item J, approving the lacrosse coaching position and amended salary schedule. Mr. Atkins, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so basically we looked at across the board at our coaching salary schedules, and we tried to find something comparable. So when we looked at everything, we were able to come up with, and what Mr. Martello did, and you'll notice it's attached, is he gave us a complete cost of not just coaches, but what it would cost to start the programs. Now we know correct me if I'm wrong, but the 4 combined programs were about approximately $82,000. Now we know though up front that the coaching is probably going to be the only thing that's reoccurring, because the programs will fund themselves. They will end up, paying for their own travel through gate admissions, those types of things, paying for their own referees. So right now we know just getting started that we're going to have this initial buy-in, but we know that with any program. So that's where that's at.
Okay.
And that was for both high school boys and girls and middle school boys and girls. Yes.
Looks like the 14 cost total is 106 and 86 each year. Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve the lacrosse coaching position and amended salary schedule?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate, and I will second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 3-0. Item K is a 2021-2022 sanitizing services.
So we looked at the contract on that, and it can be turned into a reoccurring contract. Prior to that, Mr. Wells and Mr. Sloan, am I correct, had gotten together and they had put together a program where we would do it ourselves. And I feel like because we have the majority of the sprayers, okay? So if we purchase just a few more sprayers, $250, $300 a piece, if we were to even just pay an hour overtime to our custodians, we would still have a huge cost savings. Mr. Martello, what's the monthly charge for the, and we would still be sanitizing?
Yes, sir. Yes, and instead of outsourcing,
Just a sec. Okay.
instead of outsourcing the cost, we were looking for this school year. This last year, when we had a full month of school, it was $55,000 to pay this company to come in and spray at night. And so being, still addressing that concern, we just look at it in-house instead of outsourcing that responsibility at a much far cheaper expense.
Do you know the cost that you would anticipate if we do pick this up as an in-house thing?
It was between a 400, depending on how many days of school, hopefully we're in every day, it's between a 400 to 500,000, 400 to $500,000 in cost. That could have been.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant.
I'm sorry.
What would the cost be per month if we take care of it in-house?
If we took it in-house, the sprayers minus the labor, I don't want to give you a number tonight and not be accurate. So let me follow up with you this week and get those specific dollars, because you're going to start to getting into overtime situation, and that fluctuates by employee, whether they're seasoned or or a smaller amount. So let me get an average cost on that, on the overtime plus the materials for the actual material.
That's going to be the biggest cost. Would be the product we spray.
And we have a vendor identified for that, and the availability of that product is good or easy?
Mr. Wells, do you want to weigh in?
Glenn, do you know about the product we spray in our sprayers? Has it been easily readily available to get? I'm not sure what we spray either. Do you know what we spray, Mr. Wells? Is it Virex? There's a couple of different things that we use. Get it regularly.
Recommendations last week. If we do pull this process in-house, we are still maintaining the same level of effectiveness and health safety for all of our employees and students. Is that an accurate statement?
Is that the microphone?
I have no clue. I use this.
Yes, yeah, we feel like we would be using
Speak up, man.
the same type.
You can use mine now, Bob. He was just messing with you now.
Working with everybody else. Go ahead. Just have to hold it up.
That's
Yes, ma'am. We would be using similar type of foggers that our company uses. We have those foggers available. We might get a few more. There's a couple different products that we would be looking at. One would go in the foggers. We also have just manual spray cans. Also, keep in mind we'll be cleaning our desks, our touch surfaces, in between classes as well. So the surfaces will be getting cleaned throughout the day, and then we would follow up in the evening with the foggers and with other sprays.
okay.
And I will add too that we sanitized our own buses all year last year. Am I correct on that? We sanitized our own buses. The company didn't do that for us. So we did that. We did that after every run with our sprayers that we have.
I would just say that I asked for this to be placed on the agenda because it was a successful mitigation strategy last year, and I feel like we as a school were able to be open a much larger number of days than many school districts were able to be opened in the country and in the state. And so I feel like at this point, we've been given around $7 million in ESSER funds to mitigate and to sanitize and to clean and to really, do the best possible job we can do with pandemic and with keeping our kids safe. So I guess my suggestion would be that if we have a mitigation strategy that we know works, And we did this last year, outsourced, but we still did just probably thousands and thousands of hours in-house for cleaning, sanitizing. We had our kids chipping in, we had our bus drivers, our teachers, our staff. There's still plenty to do in between times when kids are in and out of the building, or not using the desks or moving around, those kinds of things. And we know this works. We know that this is something that really the health department has said worked as a mitigation strategy, and something I think even in listening to the governor speak tonight, really kind of stressed and reiterated, your top priority has to be getting the kids in the building and keeping the building open and going. The Delta variant's very different from some of the things we've seen. The quarantines, that kind of thing, may look a little bit different. So I think probably our best chance of opening and staying open and being open is following some of these mitigation strategies that we know were successful last year and allowed Woodford County to be open, over 100 days. So I would make a motion that we approve the same contract we had with the same service, with the same products that we know were approved by the health department and by KDE to be used in schools, and that we approve that expense for this upcoming school year.
Okay, just to make sure that I'm clear on your motion, Ms. Springate, even though we've been told that it would be the same substance that we'd be using and saving tens of thousands of dollars by doing it in-house, you're advocating for using the contract that we used last year?
I am advocating for that because we know it worked. And the other thing is we're not super sure if we're going to get the same product. We're not super sure if...
Mr. Wells?
It wouldn't necessarily be the same product that the company used. They tried a couple different ones. The first one they tried, there was an issue with some stickiness since they switched over to a pure red product. So I don't know if you necessarily use the same product. There are a variety of products out there.
And it would be at the same standard of cleanliness and okay.
And I will say that was one of the concerns that at least a couple of principals had, was that they felt like the company just walked in and kind of sprayed everywhere instead of the high-touch surfaces, because they talked about their floors getting messed up, that type of thing. But, so.
All right, there's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I have more questions.
Okay, there's a second by Ms. McHale. Go ahead with your discussion. Yeah.
So that this may play very well. You go ahead with your questions.
Okay. Just if we vote yes on this, does this mean that this is the only thing we can do? I would be fine approving a service and still advocating for doing that the most cost-effective way possible, which would be obviously bringing it in-house. However, if something happened that then later on in the year we needed it.
Now, the motion that's on the floor right now is to continue the contract with the provider that we used last year at the same rate as we paid them last year.
As I'm saying, that may be contingent upon the contract that we have to use them. It may not be able to, we have to use them X amount of times. You see what I'm saying? So that's something that I'm not familiar with enough with the contract other than knowing it could be renewed. I didn't know that. So that it could be renewed, but it may have a stipulation that we have to use them 4 to 5 days a week, which would eliminate us using in-house at all.
Yeah,
So-
I don't think it had that stipulation. I believe we were able to use it as needed. So on the month that we were open more, that $55,000 was for a full month that we were open.
And I can't
There were other
answer
months,
that, so
yeah.
yeah.
I think there were other months that it was not 55,000.
Garrett.
And the other thing is, I think that it's important too to note that they were able to do all of our buildings. So it wasn't just our schools. They also did,
Yeah, they did. I know they did central office because Ms. Cooper and I discussed that as well.
and then the bus garage, and so all points. And the other thing is, if you don't have good cleaning and mitigation strategies, and I'm not sure if we would have to hire folks or not hire folks. I know we have a lot of trouble sometimes getting and keeping maintenance and janitorial staff. And so I'm not sure what that would look like. I would just prefer to be on the safe side, to use the ESSER funds that we got from the federal government, around $7 million, to use some of that for the cleaning and the sanitizing as a mitigation strategy, because we do know that it was successful and we were able to stay open, which really, and educate our kids safely. So that's my number one goal. So
I completely understand, and we would use that even in-house, that money, but we don't probably majority of that money's, what we got, about four, whatever ESSER 3's left, 4 something. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's 4 million, not just 4 something, it's 4 million. Yeah, so,
Okay. Any further discussion? I think that the concern, I won't speak for Ms. McHale, but for me, I am not in favor of just continuing the contract if we are able to provide the same level of safety precaution for our students and for our employees. So a vote against this particular motion on my part is not a vote against spraying and cleaning. It's just for having an opportunity for our district employees to provide the same level of service at a different cost.
I agree with what you're saying fully. I don't think that it would have been presented to us if we thought that it was not going to be as safe or effective, and some savings that we could then apply somewhere else in the district. That's a lot of money. That's half of what we're talking for lacrosse. So,
and this may be a good point that, we talked about possibly having a special call. Let Mr. Wells gather some more information, and let's examine the contract.
Yeah.
And this could be a good opportunity to come back and address this at the special call, because we know we've got to get this done before school. We've got to make a decision one way or the other before school.
that's a good point too. If we can somehow structure a contract that would allow something,
and this contract may be that way.
some level of usage, that would be helpful. But without seeing it, that's kind of tough.
Because in the contract we had with them, it was really, on days we were in school, like it wasn't a set number.
Right. But if we were in school, they were here.
Right.
So, yeah. So that gives us no flexibility to use in-house if we're in school, right?
I mean, we still could, but we have a company.
We'd have
Right.
both.
If we're
We'd
paying
have
them, right?
Right.
Yeah, right, right. Okay.
And the other item, just so everybody's on the same page, they have to have some lead time. So if we were to take it in-house and then elect to use them for whatever schools or specific buildings, they would have to have lead time in terms of staffing appropriately. Do you remember, Gary, at least a couple weeks?
Yeah, I was in contact with him recently. He said if we decided we wanted to continue with them at some point, they would need about 2 weeks to get the staffing and get everything adjusted.
Okay.
Is that something
and
you could
do you
check?
feel like, so I just don't want to be kind of handcuffed by the next time that the board meets, but do you feel that we will be prepared to do the same service for the start of school, because our board meeting is that following week after?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then.
I had one final question. I was just going to say, do you know how many staff and how many hours they were in our buildings? Because I guess if it's just one staff member, 1 hour a week, that's different than 20 staff members, 20 hours a day kind of thing.
Like 2 teams, maybe one had 2, one might have had 2 or 3, and they split up the buildings. It was an hour or 2
They did it once a week, or they did it every day?
Every day that we were in
I would imagine
session.
they
But
did,
I think it was an,
every day. I mean, Safe Harbor would take 5-10 minutes. because
Right.
It's a small building. The larger buildings, again, 1 to 2 hours.
Yes.
With two teams in the district.
okay. All right,
And here's the other thing. I'm sure they won't turn us down if we want to use them just as needed basis. I can't imagine they would, if that's what you guys decide. They're in the business of making money. They're not going to turn the money down.
okay, I think we need to vote with the item that's on the floor as it's been worded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. So that item fails 1 to 2.
I would like to say, though, I would like to see another proposal for it, and if we can do something on a as-needed basis, I think that would be great.
And I think last year that we found that this fell within the realm of your ability to make this decision to get started and then bring that back to the board with a plan and like Ms. McHale said, with all of the specifics to make sure. And we've probably been negligent in not asking Kelly her thoughts on this.
Yeah, we
But-
got a health professional.
Yeah. Kelly, is that something that you are comfortable with?
You mean
Yes,
contract.
yes.
You know, I was thinking if we're in red.
Would you care to come up here just so people can hear you?
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
My thought sitting here actually was maybe, you know, if we did an as-needed basis, you know, if we were in red, that then maybe we look at, you know, a more stringent mitigation strategy.
Okay. So what Ms. Simpson said is that if we found ourselves in a red designation with COVID rates very high, we could bring this in as an additional layer beyond having our own employees doing that, and with the thought that they may hit surfaces twice, or, I mean, there's so many unknowns, but
Kelly, did we identify any positive cases from buses last year? That
I don't recall actually
directly from
tracing
buses?
it back to a bus. I don't recall that.
Well, and then just to be clear, so they would need 2 weeks lead time to be able to get the staffing in place to be able to come and clean our building. So if we were in red, it would be a couple weeks before they could get here. We might be out of red by the time.
The particular company that we used this past year, they based out of Louisville, so they had to give a team, they actually lived down here during the week.
gotcha.
So we would take a look at that.
Yeah.
That company.
I think that all goes with your contract negotiations. You could work your magic. Right?
Yep, absolutely.
And I would love Miss Prather's thought on this also.
She weighed in last week and said that she would like the same level of, she said,
But she
don't,
didn't identify.
right, she didn't say we need to stay with this contractor, just the same mitigation strategies.
Right.
Yeah. And that is something we've been focusing on too, is making sure we still have our dividers up in our cafeterias. We have some, I think, we're gonna have to go back up. And our temperature checks, right now I think they're recommending 3-foot distances. So it's all in that guideline, the guidance that we've been discussing. So those are things that will still be in place.
Okay. All right, well, we will wait to get more information before the board takes
Yeah, we'll
action
have-
on that specific item.
We'll have, certainly the contract too. I'd like to have that explored just to see exactly if we can use them as needed.
Okay. Are there any discussion or any board member communications? Or are there any discussion items? All right, and Mr. Atkins, is there a need to, actually, we'll go through all of the information items, and is there a need to go into executive session?
I think there had been a recommendation for executive session again on the same, the same KRS that we had last week about evaluations. Am I correct?
I sent out some information about that. Was that sufficient?
If that was.
Or is
okay.
there a need for one member to go through to executive session pursuant to KRS 61.180K?
I didn't get a chance to see your email, so
Okay.
there may be something I'm missing.
I don't believe there's a need to go into executive session for that tonight. Does any other member? No. Oh, okay. All right. Then is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Springate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Conley. And the motion is adjourned, or the meeting.